It didn't begin with chaos. No explosions, no protests, no impassioned speeches or viral clips, just a quiet administrative change, a signature on a piece of paper, a single policy adjustment, buried deep within a Canadian regulatory document, was all it took to crack the foundation of American agriculture. John Deere, long-standing icon of American resilience, came to a standstill, not because of conflict, trade wars, or sabotage, but because Canada redefined the rules. By the time Washington caught wind of the shift, the damage was already spreading. Midwestern factories went silent. Showrooms shut their doors. Across the heartland, from Iowa to Nebraska, farmers waited for parts that would never come. This wasn't just a slump. It was a strangulation of industry, executed not with violence, but with red tape. Canada didn't need to make threats or flex military power. They simply rewrote the logistics playbook, complicating the supply chain to the point of collapse. Even John Deere's robust, time-tested system couldn't hold up. As the company faltered, competitors seized the moment. Where John Deere failed, others stepped in. Farmers, with no other choice, moved on. No one saw it coming. Not the company, not the government, not the rural communities who had depended on Deere for generations. This is the story of how Canada brought an American giant to its knees, and how that moment of disruption reshaped the global agricultural landscape. The first blow landed in Iowa. Assembly lines slowed, then stopped. Workers stood idle, waiting for deliveries that never came. Some had given decades to the company and had never witnessed anything like it. One by one, the plant shut down. Management offered hopeful messages, insisting it was temporary. But as delays dragged on, hope turned to frustration. Layoffs followed. First by the hundreds, then by the thousands, the layoffs rolled in. Calls to corporate headquarters were met with silence. Showrooms that once stood as monuments to American farming pride were stripped bare. Gleaming equipment replaced by empty floors and hollow promises. The iconic green and yellow, once symbols of strength and reliability, became emblems of frustration. John Deere's contingency plans unraveled instantly. The components were too specialized, too custom. Local suppliers couldn't replicate them, and Canadian manufacturers, now tangled in red tape and new export controls, couldn't move them fast enough. By the end of the month, assembly lines were cannibalizing half-built machines just to make space. Not even during the darkest days of the pandemic had the situation grown this dire. John Deere, once the indomitable force of American farming, wasn't simply delayed. It was being hollowed out from the inside. As the factories faltered, the impact rippled on outward to the dealerships, pillars of small-town life across the Midwest. Desperation replaced routine. Farmers walked through dealership doors, pleading for parts. Some were mid-planting, others had harvesters stalled in the field. The dealers could offer nothing. Not out of incompetence, but because the lifeline to the factory had been severed. One dealer in Nebraska summed it up. "We have the building, the name, the uniforms, but we're selling air. It's like running a grocery store with no food." Some dealers, afraid for their survival, began discreetly stocking rival equipment, tractors from South Korea, implements from China. It went against everything they stood for, but tradition couldn't pay the bills. Even the most loyal farmers, who had lived and breathed green for generations, began looking elsewhere. It felt like a betrayal, but necessity doesn't ask permission. Meanwhile, Canada didn't back off. They tightened the restrictions further. This wasn't a misstep. It was a calculated move. A strategic maneuver aimed at forcing American companies to bring manufacturing home or suffer the consequences. The policy shift wasn't about parts. It was about leverage, about changing the very equations in boardrooms across the U.S. Mark Carney, the architect behind Canada's economic strategy, had made his play. By choking a critical supply chain during the peak of the growing season, he exposed America's over-reliance on foreign production. Companies unwilling to adapt were left to bleed out. And John Deere bled first. But the damage didn't stop with Deere. It spread. Farmers across the Great Plains began turning to unfamiliar brands. Tractors from BYD, harvesters from Fendt, Smart, control systems from CLAS, not because they wanted to, but because they had no other option. The era of unwavering loyalty was over. Survival had rewritten the rules. China and South Korea moved with the precision and speed of predators. Companies like BYD and NEO quickly stepped in, striking deals with U.S. dealerships left stranded by John Deere's collapse. European manufacturers joined the fray, offering attractive financing options. Some even began shipping parts directly to farms, bypassing broken American logistics entirely. As one Kansas farmer put it, loyalty doesn't put food on the table. Working equipment does. Panic began to spread through state governments. Governors from Iowa, Michigan, and Ohio, states that had heavily backed Donald Trump, found themselves pleading with Canadian trade officials for relief. The tariffs meant to protect American industry had instead rendered entire regions vulnerable. The irony was crushing. With no clear federal solution in sight, states began acting on their own. Some offered tax incentives to foreign manufacturers willing to establish plants locally. Others sought partnerships in Mexico. The federal government, still clinging to rhetoric about strength and independence, was being quietly circumvented by the very states it claimed to represent. Meanwhile, the emotional fallout deepened. Cafes in farming towns started closing early. Banks reported increased withdrawals. Schools in factory-reliant areas braced for budget cuts. The vast fields of the Midwest, once filled with Deere machinery, now looked unfamiliar. Rural Americans, who had once believed in the promise of protectionism, were watching their livelihoods slip away. Grassroots movements formed. Some farmers filed lawsuits. Others staged protests at state capitals. Many simply walked away, leaving behind equipment they couldn't repair, crops they couldn't harvest, and dreams they could no longer afford to chase. At John Deere's headquarters, the panic finally took hold. Emergency meetings were called. Stock prices plummeted. Investors fled. The company rushed to retrofit its plants in Iowa and Illinois, scrambling to restart domestic production. But the ecosystem had already shifted. Suppliers had moved on. Former partners were hesitant to return. Rehired workers found themselves assembling outdated machines with obsolete tech. It wasn't a revival. It was a slow-motion collapse. Even foreign automakers took notice. In Japan, trade ministers met with executives from Toyota and Honda. Their conclusion, the U.S. market was no longer stable. Tariffs had made it too unpredictable. In response, Japan adjusted its strategy. Toyota expanded its operations in Kentucky. Honda announced a new EV facility in Ohio. Privately, they began planning increased exports to Europe and Southeast Asia, gradually reducing reliance on the U.S. But where Japan was cautious, China and South Korea acted. NIO launched new offices in California. BYD signed deals in Texas. Hyundai fast-tracked its EV rollout from plants in Alabama and Georgia, steadily claiming the market space Deere had once defined. American consumers, tired of high prices and broken promises, began embracing foreign alternatives without hesitation. Europe, meanwhile, found itself caught in limbo. Luxury brands like Mercedes and BMW struggled to absorb tariff costs, yet moving production to the U.S. risked diluting their identity. They hesitated and lost ground. Asian manufacturers seized the opportunity. By the time Europe adapts, the market may have already moved on. Beneath all of this churn lies a single, undeniable truth. This crisis was never just about parts. It was about power. Canada's policy change landed like a missile, and the impact revealed a harsh reality. Tariffs didn't shield American manufacturing. They exposed it. Now companies like John Deere are racing to recover, not just supply chains, but the trust they squandered. Whether they succeed is uncertain. But one fact remains. The landscape has shifted. And the next chapter of American industry won't be written in high-rise boardrooms. It will be written in the long, quiet factories that waited too long to wake up. John Deere's history dates back to 1837, when a blacksmith named John Deere, working in Grand Detour, Illinois, invented the first commercially successful steel plow. At a time when traditional cast-iron plows struggled in the thick, rich Midwestern soil, Deere's innovative, self-scouring steel plow allowed farmers to cut through the tough prairie ground more efficiently. This breakthrough quickly gained popularity among local farmers, prompting Deere to expand his operations. By 1848, he moved the business to Moline, Illinois, a location that provided better access to transportation via the Mississippi River. The company steadily grew through the late 19th and early 20th centuries, becoming a leading name in agricultural equipment. Under the leadership of Charles Deere, John's son, the company expanded its product line and established a strong dealer network, helping it weather economic downturns and industry shifts. By the early 1900s, John Deere began producing gasoline-powered tractors, starting with the Waterloo Boy in 1918 after acquiring the Waterloo Gasoline Engine Company. This marked the company's transition into the mechanized farming era. Throughout the 20th century, Deere continued to innovate, introducing advanced models like the Model A and B series in the 1930s, which became iconic among American farmers. During World War II, the company also contributed to the war effort by manufacturing military equipment. Post-war, John Deere capitalized on the agricultural boom, investing in research and development to pioneer new technologies, including diesel, engines, hydraulic systems, and eventually computerized controls. As farming practices evolved, Deere adapted by offering more efficient, powerful machines tailored to large-scale agricultural operations. By the 1980s and 1990s, the company embraced precision agriculture, integrating GPS and software systems into its machinery to improve productivity and sustainability. The new millennium saw further diversification, with John Deere expanding into forestry, construction, and lawn care equipment while maintaining a dominant position in the global agricultural machinery market. Today, John Deere stands as a symbol of American industrial heritage and technological progress, with a global footprint that includes factories, research centers, and dealerships in more than 30 countries. The company has also made significant strides in automation and electrification, developing autonomous tractors, smart sprayers, and data-driven farm management platforms aimed at reshaping the future of agriculture by leveraging artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cloud connectivity. These advancements are part of John Deere's broader commitment to what it calls smart farming, or precision agriculture, aiming to help farmers maximize yield, reduce input costs, and minimize environmental impact. The introduction of the See and Spray technology, capable of targeting individual weeds with pinpoint accuracy, exemplifies the company's push towards sustainability through innovation. In recent years, John Deere has also entered the race toward electrification, unveiling fully electric tractors and autonomous solutions that can operate around the clock without human intervention. This evolution is not only about machinery, but also about data. John Deere has increasingly positioned itself as a technology company, developing cloud-based platforms like the John Deere Operations Center, which allows farmers to collect, analyze, and act on data from their equipment in real time. Despite challenges from economic cycles, global trade tensions, and growing competition, particularly from Chinese manufacturers and emerging markets, John Deere continues to invest heavily in research and global partnerships. It has acquired tech startups and formed alliances to bolster its capabilities in robotics, automation, and alternative energy sources. As climate change, population growth, and land scarcity push agriculture to become more efficient and resilient, John Deere remains at the forefront of this transformation, aiming not only to build machines, but to enable a new era of digital, connected, and regenerative agriculture that will define the decades ahead. This vision has led John Deere to make bold moves into artificial intelligence and robotics, including the acquisition of companies like Blue River Technology, which specializes in computer vision and machine learning for plant-level management. Such acquisitions have allowed Deere to enhance its product offerings with tools that can identify individual crops and make split-second decisions, capability once thought exclusive to human judgment. Additionally, the company has launched autonomous tractor prototypes capable of performing tasks such as tillage without any on-site human operation, monitored entirely through mobile devices. These steps reflect Deere's strategic ambition to reduce farmers' reliance on manual labor, a pressing issue as the agricultural workforce declines globally. At the same time, John Deere has been increasingly vocal about its commitment to sustainability and environmental stewardship, setting goals to reduce emissions from its operations and to support farmers in adopting regenerative agriculture practices that enrich soil health and sequester carbon. However, the company has also faced scrutiny and legal challenges regarding right-to-repair policies, as farmers and advocacy groups push back against restrictions on accessing software and diagnostic tools needed to fix their own equipment. This controversy has sparked widespread debate about ownership, innovation, and digital rights in modern agriculture. In response, Deere has taken steps to improve transparency and recently announced measures to expand access to repair tools, signaling a willingness to adapt to shifting consumer expectations. As it looks to the future, John Deere is navigating a complex intersection of technological leadership, environmental responsibility, and social accountability, balancing its historic legacy with a forward-looking mission to redefine how food is grown and harvested across the globe. To support this ambitious transformation, John Deere has ramped up investment in digital infrastructure and talent acquisition, hiring software engineers, data scientists, and robotics experts at a scale previously unseen in the agricultural machinery sector. The company's innovation centers and tech hubs, such as those in Silicon Valley and Germany, serve as incubators for next-generation farming solutions, including sensor fusion systems, autonomous implements, and advanced telematics. These innovations are designed to work seamlessly with John Deere's equipment lineup, creating an ecosystem where every piece of machinery is connected, responsive, and optimized for performance. Moreover, Deere has deepened its commitment to global markets, expanding manufacturing and R&D facilities in India, Brazil, and China, and tailoring its products to meet the diverse needs of smallholder and industrial-scale farmers alike. Despite geopolitical uncertainties and supply chain disruptions, the company has remained resilient, leveraging its vertically integrated operations and strong dealer network to maintain steady growth. Deere's long-term strategy is increasingly shaped by its belief that food security and environmental sustainability are deeply intertwined, and it views digital agriculture as a key tool in addressing these global challenges. By combining cutting-edge technology with nearly 2 centuries of mechanical expertise, John Deere aims to not only provide tools for productivity, but also platforms for collaboration, bringing farmers, agronomists, researchers, and policymakers together to drive systemic change. As artificial intelligence, climate science, and regenerative practices converge, John Deere is positioning itself as more than a manufacturer of tractors and harvesters. It aspires to be a leader in the global movement toward climate-smart agriculture, where every seed planted and every field cultivated is guided by data, insight, and purpose.